Hey all, it's Vanessa Love. Alright, so this is my channel about mental health fields. I wanted to go over with you um, about facts and what studies really mean. So I'm going to read you something I had taken a couple of classes, so I had printed this out a while ago. So this is from the American Journal of Men's Health 2018 edition, because it was the mental health edition of the American Journal for Mental Health of Men's Health. And this was actually published before that. It was published in 2015. It says that this was reprinted with the permission of of this organization. So it's called Gender Manifestation of Depression and Help Seeking Among Men. All right. So all of these type of peer research things, and I'm like, I don't even know what I wrote there, are they follow very specific things. So abstract. Then you get a little bit of background. You do a literature review, right? Do your literature review. And then they actually go into like this whole thing of what else they were looking for in this thing. So it says provider type. I was like quickly looking over it today, and the provider type is about what type of provider a man with depression, or what do they call it? Male typical symptoms of depression and help-seeking behaviors among men. Who are they likely to talk to if they felt like they might have some male typical symptoms of depression? And they go over like what that means, methods, how they collected the data, as you can see, data and sample, measures, what they did, and dependent variables, independent variables, and they even go over the basic demographics. So you can see here that they had 2,296 participants, and this is in percentages what they have. So 26.9% were between the ages of 18 and 30. Let's see, 61.9% were married or cohabitating. 23.4% were never married. It goes over all of the demographics, right? So then they talk about how they analyzed all of this data. They ended up actually throwing out, I think, 10, because in the abstract, it says that they used data from, what did they say? Oh, yeah, they threw out like more than, okay, from 2,382 male respondents. So I guess they had to throw a couple out because this one says 2,296. So they had to throw out a couple of answers. So then they talk about the results, and the results are fairly straightforward. Like, they're just telling you what they found. And then they have the graphs, which, yeah, if you don't read the other stuff, then you don't know what this means. And yeah, all of their data analysis and stuff, right? I mean, you definitely have to understand all of this other stuff before you get to my favorite part. My favorite part is the discussion, because the discussion talks about, let's see, where did the discussion go? Discussion starts here. So in the discussion, they talk about any issues that came up in the research. So I was quickly going through this and just to make sure that I knew what I was doing. And it's really cool because they talk about all of this stuff, basically what the data imply, which is usually fairly interesting. Yeah, there's so many other things. And so the discussion lasts for a long time. Oh, one of the other things I wanted to mention too is that when they do the literature review, So they'll say, despite the widespread prevalence of mental health disorders, only 1/4 to 1/3 of people with diagnosable mental disorders seek help. So they say this is from Andrews, Isakidis, and Carter of 2001, and Gonzalez, Tinsley, and Karuder of 2002. So they referenced right here two studies. So when you go all the way to the back, the last usually page or two is all about the research that they cited in this, and it has to be in APA format. So usually if it's a psychological thing. So they also have been doing the declaration of conflicting interest and like talking about the funding that they're receiving, which I think is really great, because before that wasn't there. Yeah, no one, like, that was not a thing. So, let's see, there was the Andrews one. So you can see Andrews, Isakidis, and Carter, 2001, shortfalls in mental health services in service utilization, British Journal of Psychiatry. Let's see, edition 179, pages 417 to 425, and then when they, like how they accessed that. So there's like a little thing there too. And then you can go and look at any of these other ones, like, and you know, that's just one of the things that they referred, like articles that they referred to or periodical that they referred to. There's also other ones like Arenas and Griff, 2000, Issues of Fatherhood and Recovery for VA Substance Abuse Patients, Journal of Psychoactive Drugs. Let's see, issue number 32, pages 339 to 341. So yeah, all of that is there. All right, so the discussion, again, my favorite part, because you get to actually like talk in the discussion, and it's not like, it's formulaic, but it's not formulaic. So as I said, discussion starts here. Results section just talks about like what the data shows, or show. And so they'll say like, as demonstrated in table 1, the total mean scores was 2.1 for the traditional symptom index and 1.98 for the male typical symptom index. The relatively low mean scores were expected because the sample included men who met the lifetime criteria for any disorder, as well as 1 in 3 subsamples of men who did not meet the criteria for any disorder. So yeah, they just like point out some things in their analysis, right? Like in the results. And then like the discussion is where they start to be like, okay, so here's what happened. Here's what you can extrapolate from the data. And so yeah, there's like a lot of interesting things. I was looking at some of this. So depression is diagnosed about twice as often in women as men, suggesting that men feel uncomfortable seeking help for what is often seen as a feminine problem. Furthermore, men who seek help for mental health concerns other than depression may relegate any comorbid depression to a secondary concern rather than a primary presenting issue, and thus much less likely to clearly state needing treatment for depression. And so yeah, like that's the parts, these are the things that I really love reading, because I'm like, okay. And then further on, they talk about any problems in the study. All right. There are certain limitations to the study, particularly regarding the generalizability of the data set. While the data contained a large representative sample, it did not include individuals who were institutionalized, including incarcerated men and men in inpatient treatment. This excludes many men who may be severely depressed, including men in hypermasculized environment including men in a hypermasculized, it's a weird word, okay, environment, who may be likely to have expressed depressive symptoms through male typical symptoms, such as substance abuse and aggression. It also excludes all non-English speakers, thus reducing its ability to examine the role of culture in depressive symptoms and help-seeking behavior. And so, like, they talk about that. They talk about future research. It's all very interesting. But what's usually presented to people is that men are more likely to go to their doctor to seek help for depressive symptoms, especially if they're male typical depression symptoms. And obviously, like, whenever you do a study, you have to define your terms. So they do actually have, like, defined terms, and not only that, there is a one of the methods that they used was, let's see, was specifically for the like the male typical symptoms. So it wasn't just it wasn't just that they had to define the term. They also found a survey that they could give to people to figure out what male typical symptoms were, like, exhibited. And they do talk about how they did have, like, a woman who met some of, like, the criteria, but, like, they were more interested in, like, men. And they do talk, especially in the discussion, about how important this is, because if some of the male typical symptoms are aggression, then it can overall, men understanding where men get treatment from and when they seek treatment would mean that there would be more informed therapists or people about how men seek therapy or seek treatment, and that if they get the help and treatment that is actually helpful for them, then there will be reduced aggression, which means that women will be treated better. It says, let's see, the reduced frequency of help seeking for men with male typical symptoms also affects families and communities. Men are overwhelmingly the perpetrator of control-based violence against women and children, and early interventions targeting male typical symptoms may potentially reduce future acts of domestic violence related to undiagnosed depression. So that's why they were doing some of this research. So don't just think that I was, like, looking for something that was mostly about men. This is the type of stuff that, like, again, if you were gonna, like, go and watch a whole, like, TV show, or, like, watch a news segment on this, right? So they are giving this, 11 pages or 10 pages, 2 minutes. And they're not talking about all of this other stuff. They're just mostly talking about what's in the discussion. And they're not even talking about the full discussion. They're talking about, this is what was found. And then a bunch of people come forward and go, well, that's, like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they, like, look for this? And, like, do they account for, like, men in institutions and all of this other stuff? And you'd have to be able to access these things to know whether or not your questions have been addressed, And it's like, some of this stuff, like, I mean, I've read stuff that I'm like, I really don't understand what they're getting to. But, like, I mean, for mental health stuff, obviously, it's very clear most of the time. I mean, it's convoluted a little bit, but, like, you can still kind of push through it if you need to. And so, like, it upsets me sometimes because I'm like, okay, did you look at the research? Like, did you look at the research article that was quoted in that, paper or whatever? Because it's important, like, if you've never seen this, you wouldn't necessarily know, oh my gosh, all of the discussion all of the discussion talks about these issues that you'll probably have with someone just saying, well, men typically go to their primary care doctor if they're having any symptoms of depression, right? Sorry for all the stumbling. I just really get passionate about this stuff. Anyway, I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope to talk to you soon.